Aldrich Potgieter, the 20-year-old South African phenom, taking the world by storm, from winning the amateur championship at 17 to become the youngest winner on the Korn Ferry Tour history. His rise has been nothing short of incredible. But what really sets him apart? It's his insane driving distance. He leads the PGA Tour with an average of 327 yards off the tee. Potgieter's power is already rivaling some of the biggest hitters in the game. And in today's video, we're going to break down his cause and effect, show you why he hits the ball so damn far, and why you shouldn't even bother doing this. And no, he's not a new Rory McIlroy. He is the original Aldrich Potgieter. So let's take a look, and don't forget, hit that like, share, subscribe. Let's get going. First of all, just look at this guy's legs. I mean, if there was a mascot for leg day, this guy would win it, because that is where this guy's power is coming from. Obviously, we're going to look at his cause and effect today, and yes, those yellow lines at the bottom are my blind eyes of the club face going through impacts. And you notice there's hardly any face manipulation. So where is the club face getting squared up from? Not his hands and arms like you or I, where we just flash through. His squaring comes from his body rotation and his tilting, and he does such a great job through impact that he is delivering all the power that his body is tilting and turning just with his hands at that last second. Great conservation of angular momentum, great rotation, great tilting. This is how you hit it far, but obviously you need tree trunks for legs and a body like Gumby to get this off. Put it this way, he is about the same as a running back in the NFL. So if you don't have a body like that and you can't be like Gumby, you're more like Mrs. Havenkamp or Mrs. Jabroni. It's not going to be for you. So let's just break this down real quick, cause and effect, show you how he hits the ball so far and why it is such a beautiful motion. Okay, so let's go straight to the top of the swing, because this is something I want everybody to take note of. And if we take a look at that shoulder rotation, it's past 90, eyeballing it 140 degrees. That is a lot of shoulder turn. And if you have to eyeball the hip turn, let's just call this a cool, smooth 30 degrees. And keep in mind, this is eyeballing. I'm blind as a bat. But if you minus one from the other, we are left with 110 degrees of X factor. Now, why is that important? Because that's the separation. That's the amount of torque that you're building up in your golf swing. So when you unwind, the uncoiling gets a little bit more powerful than you or I, which maybe have about 45 to 50 degrees of separation if we're lucky. But not only that, in Barney Purple, we have to take a look at where that club shaft is relative to the ground. Now, you can say, hey, Tony, yes, it's slightly past parallel. And yes, it is. But in relation to his shoulder turn, if we take a look at that shoulder turn, it is not forming the T. So even if he was truly connected with that shoulder turn, his club would be in this position, which is still not past his parallel. So remember, it's all relative to how much you can turn. Let's say you're like most average Joes and you get about 70 degrees of rotation. Your club should be about there. So we can see that that rotation will elongate that club. Now, the more you take that club back, independent of your rotation, now you've disconnected. And on the way down, you have to reconnect and time all that motion, which could again become very hard to do for the average golfer that only plays a few times a month when it's not Father's Day. But let's take a look at that first move down. We're going to draw a lineup in mellow yellow to see where that power band is. So the power band is basically this angle here. So this is how much leverage he has to use with his body weighting. Just remember, a driver, you don't want to do that, because now you're going to be swinging down. Your spin rate's going to jump up. You're going to pop it up in the air like me. But that's beside the point. For a driver, you definitely want to get that lower body over. So let's see that lower body. Does it go over? Right away, we see that initial move with the lower body, but look at the upper body. It's staying back. Now that is huge, because he is now positioning himself to not only swing up, but he has to clear that lower body out the way, and we'll see it from the down the line if he does so, which I'm sure he does. But this will also pave his right shoulder to tilt more under. Now, if you take a look at that ball position, this also plays a part. So again, in Barney Purple, let's draw where that ball position is up in the sky. If you notice, wherever that ball position will affect your drive. So if that ball position was further off of his left foot, he could have more upper body sway into the golf ball and still get away with it. And vice versa, if his ball position was too far on his right foot or more in the center of his stance, he would have to tip back even more to still swing up. So when you are looking at your golf swing, you have to make sure your ball position is relative to you and your abilities, your rotation efforts, and how you weight distribute into the golf ball. But another great thing from this point is look at that angle retention. So we know that club is dipped in between his head, so he's already dropped that club shallow. Let's just call it flat. So we know we've got great angle retention. We know we got the weight distribution correct based on our ball position. Now let's take a look from here. There's no more moving into the target. He has already distributed that weight. We can see that leg drive pushing up. Now if you take a look where the spine angle is and that leg drive is pushing up, where are they meeting? Guess where? In the belly. Now this is the center of your swing, so you have to make sure you're set up correctly, specifically from down the line, to give you the room to hold your center together, because everything is meeting in that center point. Now you take a look at that angle retention. It is still perfect. Look at that. That is just a massive amount of angle retention that he's able to store in his golf swing. Now comes not the rotation, but the tilt. Watch the right shoulder. The right shoulder is going to start moving more down, more down, more down. Now what does that right shoulder do? Well, guess what? The right shoulder is connected to the right elbow. The right elbow, you know how that song goes. But because he's created that right elbow lean, that is just going to push those hands more out, giving him that natural forward press without moving his center over. So that is the key. But the forward press does not permit him to swing down, because from this point his hands are just going to match where that shoulder tilt is. So we're going to see an exit path much higher with these hands. So look at the hands, they go wherever that shoulder tilt is. So we know we're definitely swinging up. We don't see a lot of manipulation with that club head, just as I showed in that first scene where we see the club head, no manipulation. It is moving with the rotation and the tilting. So this is how he's able to strike that golf ball with immense power, and we still see that things are well connected even past here. Look at the amount, let's clear these lines up. Look at the amount of tilting, and those hands are still out in front of the chest, well past, even up to the top. He is still connected. This is incredible, specifically for a man of his stature, to be able to stay connected with that triangle almost in his follow through when he's finishing and looking at the golf swing. Now it just comes over and it reaches his left shoulder. So this is a very important move that most people on the planet cannot do. So don't just fall for somebody saying this is his secret, you got to do this, you'll hit it just as far as him. That is just a bunch of garbage that is only reserved for a few people on the planet, and I hate to break it to you, it's not you. So we're going to look at this down the line with an iron. Now, he can probably just pummel his irons too. He probably hits a driver wedge on a lot of these par fours when he needs to. But what you want to look at is in that golf swing right here is just look at where the club face is at the top of the swing. It is definitely closed. Now, we know with a closed club face, we only have one option, is now we have to use our body and our tilting to hold that club face from releasing. And this is another key point. But in order to do that, as he strikes the golf ball, look at how much spacing he has for his shoulders to tilt more at impact. So we definitely don't see a rotation of the upper body. We see a tilting, because if he rotated with that closed club face at the top of the swing, that ball is in Mrs. Havenkamp's and Mrs. Jabroni's 4th of July parade. And that is not one you want to break, because, man, bullets will be flying and people will be dying. And we know, look at this, after impact, so much tilt. So the more you close that club face at the top, you had better have some tilting cojones on you, because that is the only way you're going to keep that club face from releasing. So we have 35 degrees of tilting. Now remember, tour average runs between 15 to low 20s. So he is almost doubling his tour average to keep that club from going left. So he's holding his release past impact. Now, how do we do that correctly? Look at the lower body. What does the lower body have to do? Hey man, it has to get on out the way. And the only way to get on out the way is to do what? Have a great setup. So if we take a look at the setup, let's draw some setup lines. There's the lower plane line. There's the upper plane line. Look at the amount of spacing he has to use. Number one, so we know that this is a natural arm hang straight down, and we can only get that by keeping our upper body more over. And what do we notice when we get our heels straight up to the sky? Bing! Just like clockwork, they meet right in that center. Now, the key thing is, do you think he maintains his posture? Let me give you a minute to figure that one out. Actually, you don't need a minute. You should know already. Yes, he will. As he strikes that golf ball, look at that. The exact same posture. He hasn't moved up. He hasn't shaft humped like you and I do. He hasn't moved back around. He hasn't the noodle arms flying around. Everything's connected. We strike that golf ball. The excess tilt keeps that club from going way left, and he comes on out of his posture. But look at this. hand gets on that upper plane line, we get to the top of the swing, hand is on that upper plane line. It's amazing how this works when you know what to look for. And we're going to leave it with this last video. Just look at the motion. Now you know what to look for, right? Posture, retainment. You look at where that club face is at the top of your swing. If it's closed, you better tilt. If it's open, you better turn. So look at your club head at the top of the swing. Relate it back to your setup. Relate it back to how you move in the golf swing. If your setup is causing you to move unsuccessfully, change your setup. Setup will create positions. Positions create power. If you have bad setup, guess what happens to your power? It is gone. All you're doing is fighting yourself all day long. And we're going to leave you with this one image right there. Look at that. That is just unbelievable. Let's back it up a little bit. Right there. We have spacing. We have tilting. We have turning with the lower body. We have bracing and staying in your posture. We have a mixture of a new superhero. We should call him, he's a new Marvel superhero, Marvel golf superhero. Hulk Gumby, better known as Humby. So that's your new nickname, Humby. Hope you like this. Hit that like, share, subscribe if you do. We have more information coming out every week about how you should not fall down the YouTube rabbit hole and just listen to your local golf coach. They can help you more than anything. Hope that helps you. I'll see you next time. Fairways and Green.